Okay. So I want to get into what happens when the grift becomes more important than the message and how that has shaped our reality in a major way. First and foremost, I want to take you back in time. And to give you some context, in case you're wondering what I'm talking about how we wound up where we are today politically with Trump, with the administration, with MAGA, with everything that happened, with everything with the internet, social media. I want to walk back and I want to kind of take you through what I witnessed and what not only what I saw or not only what I've studied and did lots of historical research on, but for the years before I was born, but then what I've witnessed since I've been alive and how I saw this hijacking take place of our reality. There's been a concerted effort to hijack reality and basically rewrite history. And I'm going to explain it. So in the mid 1960s, we had Democrats and Republicans. We had liberals and conservatives. Liberals, by definition, meant the actual what it means to be liberal, not like this bastardization of the word today where the right acts like it's a swear word, but liberals versus conservatives. And they had different political views, but for the most part, they agreed on the same set of facts of reality. Hey, Travis, how you doing? Thank you, man. So with the facts of reality that they agreed upon, they understood that we had a shared reality. is what they came to an understanding on. Now, at that time, the head of the conservative movement was William F. Buckley, who was in charge of the National Review. And there was this small little tiny group of people. They were off in the corner. And these people were whack jobs. And they were called the John Birch Society. And feel free to give that a Google if you'd like. You could look up what the John Birch Society was. But the John Birch Society was these crazy fringe lunatic alt-right people, namely white supremacists. And I say that in the legitimate use. I mean, at the time, it was run by William Luther Pierce, who was in the Ku Klux Klan. So make no mistake about it, they were definitely white supremacist organization. So William Luther Pierce wrote a book. Well, this was later in the 70s, but we'll get there in a minute. But at the time, we'll get there in a minute. But at the time that the John Birch Society movement, around the mid to late 60s, they had this crazy belief. Okay. Well, first of all, they were white supremacists. They were pro-segregation for a lot of reasons that were bad, not reasons that were logical. And the National Review basically ripped them apart. William F. Buckley called them loons. William F. Buckley was the head of the conservative movement. And he was like, these people are crazy. They're crazy. I don't want anything to do with these people. They're racist. They're anti-Semitic. They're lunatics. And they don't represent conservative beliefs. But then, fast forward a few more years, the head of the John Birch Society movement, which was William Luther Pierce, he wrote a book called The Turner Diaries. Well, The Turner Diaries was a fiction, but it was a story that essentially circulated around the subject of that the Jews had a conspiratorial, the Jews were conspiring to basically eradicate whites and replace them with Jews, blacks, browns, whatever, but anything but the straight white Christian, whatever, or whatever, I wouldn't even argue straight, just the white Christian. And these people were crazy because they ended up taking that fictitious book that William Luther Pierce wrote, and they made it their mantra. They made it the core mantra of what they believed at the John Birch Society. Now, obviously, this belief system flew directly in the face of reality, and reality, which was reported on the news, would definitely, factually report stories that would fly in the face of this argument because it's completely irrational and insane. So what ended up happening was the John Birch Society and that type of group of people who were for that started to argue that the media and everything that they were reporting, that they weren't reporting reality, they were reporting lies, that they were liberal lies that were meant to brainwash you into believing a liberal telling of our world. This is what they would be telling people. Now, obviously, this movement didn't have any traction. It didn't have any financial backing. It didn't have any legs at all. But they began to, with pamphlets and notifying people and reaching out in various ways, they began to spread. And they wanted to rail against the mainstream news media at the time, which was not like what you guys know now. We didn't have the 24-hour news cycle like CNN or any of that. It was just NBC and ABC and, Tom Brokaw and Peter Jennings and, people just getting on and reporting the facts. And they were arguing that those people were reporting a liberally biased reality. And it started to get a little bit of traction right around the late 70s, early 80s. And then they started to create radio stations, or they would, or radio shows on really like weird AM radio, broadcasts. And they started to push this lunatic ideology onto the farmers and rural whites of America, who would listen to these AM radio shows and actually believe the stuff that they were listening to. And the reason why this, was kind of an integral moment in this story is because there was a market for it. They saw that there was a market for it. They saw that there were dejected, poor, uneducated, sorry, but true, rural whites in rural areas of America that could easily buy into this ideology. And through fear tactics, you're white, they hate you, liberals hate you, they want to get rid of you. Through fear tactics, they convinced a lot of these people to believe that this was true. Now, what ended up happening was they started to realize that the listener of the radio show was crazier than they were. So they would be taking phone calls on these radio shows, and they would realize that, oh my God, this guy is even crazier than me. Like, I'm saying these outlandish things, but now he's calling going, well, I think that, I think that, like, the liberals fund the Black Panther Society and that they want them, they're trying to have them, create an army to rise up against us, or whatever kind of crazy, shit would come out of their mouth. And they would listen to that. The radio broadcaster would listen to that, and they would go, well, if I tell them they're crazy, they'll stop listening. they'll stop listening. And I want to get more people to listen to the show. So instead of denouncing what these crazy wackos were saying that was even more far-fetched than the far-fetched crap they were saying to begin with, they didn't denounce the ideas, they accepted them. Because they knew that that's what they wanted. They wanted their outlandish idea to have some validity. They wanted to listen to a guy at a radio show who would confirm their bias and their outlandish ideas. And the radio show wanted ratings. And so when they realized that there was a market for this and they fed that narrative, again, the grift became more important than the message. Then it really started to have legs. All of a sudden, this is when you saw the Rush Limbaughs, the Pat Buchanans, the Glenn Becks, all throughout the 80s and early 90s that began to pop up because they wanted to feed this and they wanted to get paid. They wanted to feed that market and make money feeding it. And then, of course, Alex Jones emerged. And here's where things enter the next phase of our reality getting hijacked. So now there's money in this. Alex Jones was one of the first to say, you know what? Instead of just broadcasting, let's record it to CD and print a bunch of these CDs and disseminate them all in rural areas. And Alex Jones blew Rush Limbaugh out of the water with his reach. He said, I'm going to do what Rush Limbaugh is doing, but I'm going to take it to the most extreme, and I'm going to push these ideas, and I'm going to get these CDs into the hands of all these rural people. And, of course, Alex Jones tacked on a lot of other nonsense, too, conspiracy bullshit and all this stuff, secret society rumors and, all this kind of shit. And I know some of you are going to go, what about Epstein? We'll get there in a minute. So when this happened and there became a market, Alex Jones, right around the mid to late 90s, realized, wait a minute, the internet is a powerful tool. So he starts InfoWars. He starts, converting all these people to subscribers of InfoWars. And then, it got bigger and bigger, and it on forums, there were multiple, message board forums and things where people were talking about this stuff, and the movement got bigger and bigger. And then YouTube came. And Alex Jones was like all in on that. He dove right in and immediately made InfoWar YouTube's, and then of course so did the Glenn Becks, and so did the Pat Buchanans, and so did the crazies, the other crazies. They all did it too. But now the internet allowed them to really just get their media out there and funnel all these followers to one subscriber base. And then, of course, their reach got bigger. They got bigger. And all of these nonsensical conspiracies, all of this stuff, Alex Jones and Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh would feed the narrative. Rush Limbaugh literally said when he was, I don't know if he was aware he was being recorded or if he wasn't, but Rush Limbaugh literally said one time in an audio recording that I heard where he said, some of these people call up and they say some of the craziest shit. But what am I going to do? Tell them that they're crazy? They'll stop listening to the show. And Alex Jones was doing the same thing. They were feeding into it for broader ratings, subscribers, more views, so on and so forth. So right around the time that Donald Trump was running for office in 2015, we could go when Richard Nixon ran for office in the 1970s. He was told by Roger Stone to tap into this Bircher movement because it had grown a little bit of legs by the 70s. And he said, let's tap into it. And that was when a lot of the racist Dixiecrats who used to vote for the Democrats hopped over to the Republican Party to support Richard Nixon. That was the moment when all those crazies went to the right. They decided to infect the right side of politics. So all this nonsense about Abraham Lincoln was a Democrat, Abraham Lincoln was a Republican, Right. Well, he was, but he was a Republican before this movement existed and hijacked the Republican Party. So, anyways, Roger Stone told Nixon to appease these people, and basically said, if you do, you'll win the election. It'll give you that extra edge. Well, this was bad. It was bad that he appeased these people. It caused, I mean, there's a reason why there was unbelievable riots during his presidency. I mean, he turned the army again, like I mean, they bombed a college campus and killed students. I mean, it was kind of looking pretty similar to what it's looking like now. Not as bad, but definitely bad. And so this is what happened the last time this happened. But going through, then Obama runs for the presidency and wins in 2008. Well, this really pissed off this movement, this online movement. This really, really made them angry because they're over here believing in the great race replacement theory, where they think the Jews are going to eradicate whites and all this, and now they're seeing a black president. They're going down to the grocery store, and the person that works there is named Ahmed or Muhammad, when it used to be John and Bob. And they're calling a cable satellite repairman, and the guy shows up and he's Latino. And then they see a black president. And this fear of the nonsense they've been regurgitating from this Birch Society movement got these people actually freaking out. Like, oh my God, Obama became a president, this and that, and blah, 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 blah. So what happened was they ultimately started thinking like, we're under attack. It's true. They want to get rid of us, which was nonsensical. But it really fired up the underground, and it expanded them. Obama put so much fear into a lot of people that it increased the amount of people that joined this movement, and let alone the fact that he won again the second term. But I want to talk about that because when he ran against John McCain, and this is very important, this is a very pivotal moment. When John McCain was running, he could have appeased these John Birch Society thinkers. He could have appeased them. He could have went up there and said, you guys are right. But instead, and I could, show you a video footage clip, and maybe I will some other time, and if I ever go over this again. But there is a video clip on YouTube of John McCain talking, and a woman in the crowd who's brainwashed by this John Birch Society rhetoric. And she gets up there and she says, I could never vote for Obama. He's a Muslim. He's a terrorist, or something like that. And McCain went, ma'am, that's not true. Obama's not a Muslim or a terrorist. He's a good man. He's a constitutional lawyer. He's American, as you and me. We have different views politically, but he is not those things. And the reason why John McCain did that was because he has integrity. He has integrity. And that type of integrity, to be honest, I haven't seen it since that man died. I haven't seen integrity. I feel like integrity died when he did. That's really what I feel. But anyways, I digress. So he could have won if he had fed that, but he didn't. And so this brings me to my next point, which was also, if you remember, John McCain brought on, why am I forgetting her name? The woman from Alaska there who talked like this. I could see Russia from my house. Forget her name. And she was meant to come on to appease the John Birch Society people. Those people that we're talking about. These people who are brainwashed by this crazy ass rhetoric. And it didn't work because McCain shut it down. That's why it didn't work. He had integrity and he shut it down. So then fast forward to Trump running And now he's mad because he goes to the correspondence dinner and Obama gets up and tells jokes bashing him for 20 straight minutes. And he sat there fucking humiliated. Humiliated. Just absolutely destroyed. And I believe, I don't know for a fact, but I believe he decided to run for president right after he walked out of that correspondence dinner. I could be wrong, but that's what I believe because it enraged him. And so when he decided to run, Roger Stone, the same guy that helped Richard Nixon win, he was hired to help Trump win. And the first thing he told him is, hey, listen, there's 6.5 million Americans that are dejected, that watch Alex Jones, that watch Rush Limbaugh, that listen to Glenn Beck. And these people are rural, poorly informed, totally irrational people that think all these insane white supremacist, and like conspiracies that they're going to be replaced by everybody and all this. And Roger Stone told Trump, but if you go on the Alex Jones show and you tell them that they're right about all their insane conspiracies and that you're going to drain the swamp and rid the corrupt government of all the evil that they believe is going on, you'll win the election. Trump was like, okay, I'm with it. I'm with it. So Trump, instead of having integrity like John McCain, fueled this insane movement, pushed it to the point where he mainstreamed it. It started to actually catch fire. It started to grow legs. Before you know it, it was like, and keep in mind that this is around the popularity. I mean, Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook and YouTube and media was traveling everywhere in 2015 and 16. And he was able to take this movement and really spread it like a California wildfire all over the place. And that's exactly what he did. And then next thing you know, there's a huge market that you can meet with this demand. So then you saw, grifters like Candace Owens, grifters like Jordan Peterson, grifters like Ben Shapiro, and all these grifters that basically said, even Charlie Kirk, hey, let's make money off this grift. There's a whole market of people out there that believe this nonsense. Let's make money off this grift. And so that's what they did. And that continued to grow it and grow it and grow it to the point where misinformation and spreading it became integral to making money. And so just like Alex Jones was doing, Candace Owens was doing the same thing. My audience is crazier than me, but I have to meet them where they are or they're going to stop watching. So once again, the grift becomes more important than the message. And so that's exactly what happened with Candace Owens. That's what happened with Jordan Peterson. That's what happened with Ben Shapiro. That's what happened with all these people. Even people like Asmund Gold, the video game guy, for those of you who don't know who he is, who now talks politics all the time. Asmund Gold realized one day, I watched it in real time. I saw Asmund Gold go on there live and start talking about his political views, defending the fact that black people really did have a history and with slavery and with sharecropping and all that, that's why that they couldn't, they'd be less likely to afford a home and all this, which he's right. And then out of nowhere, his base just starts exploding on him, ripping him down. Oh my God, you're so stupid. Here we go. You're going to sit here and defend blacks and you're this and that. And he started realizing, uh-oh, my base is crazy. Then his father, who's now passed away, rest in peace to Asmund's father, his father calls the show and tells him, what are you doing? You can't say that. Your audience doesn't want to hear that. You're telling them that white people don't matter. You're telling them that black people need to be favored. You're telling them, which was not what he was telling them. He was educating them to a reality. But right away, and in that moment, I saw it in Asman's mind and hit through his iris. I saw it click in his brain. The grift has to be more important than the message. The grift has to be more important than the message. And so, this is why this really spread like wildfire, because people cared more about wanting to get paid and meeting their crazy base wherever they are for views than they did of being accurate or saying anything with any substance. It was just, I'm going to go feed the trolls. I'm going to go feed them what they want. They're going to say these outlandish things, and I'm just going to agree with them or walk a fine line and never tell them that they're wrong because I need to grift and make money off the views. And so this continued to overwhelm the infosphere of America. All social media became completely engulfed and entrenched in misinformation and conspiracy theory because everybody was out to get paid off of spreading it. All this John Birch Society stuff has now bloomed where it got so big that it was dangerous. And then Trump lost an election in 2020. But he knew that his base was crazy and drunk on conspiracy. He had convinced everybody that the news lies, which was the John Birch Society theme. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, Donald Trump's father, Fred Trump, was one of the primary investors into the John Birch Society back in the 60s and 70s. So this is tied together. And I don't even need to go into the fact that Donald Trump's, the architect who helped him design Trump Towers is Charlie Kirk's father. Okay? All this stuff is incestuous. And at the end of the day, it's a gigantic grift. That's what it is. And I guess my point is, as I'm going to wrap this up, is basically that after that happened and it blew up and exploded that big, Trump was able to just come out and go, they're lying. They committed fraud. The news is lying. Don't believe them. Don't believe the judges. They're a part of the liberal agenda. Don't believe the news. They're a part of the liberal agenda. They're all just part of the liberal agenda, and you need to listen to me. I was robbed of an election. And hence the cult was born. Trump had succeeded in basically becoming the leader of this entire movement. Glenn Beck was no longer the leader. Alex Jones was no longer the leader. Pat Buchanan was no longer the leader. All these right-wing talking people. Charlie Kirk was no longer the leader. They were all just grifters. But now Trump had figured out a way to take their entire grift and make it his own. One big, huge grift. And that's what he did. And so that was why it was so easy for him to get a bunch of people riled up to show up to the Capitol on January 6th. That's why it was so easy for him to get them to be enraged enough to storm the Capitol building, because they were drunk on propaganda. And I'm not even going to get into how Russia in 2015, the FBI found solid evidence, lots of it, that Russia was also pushing this movement and spending an unbelievable amount of money to push this grift. And the reason being, I think, because they knew it would divide the country. That's my theory. But it's also coming out now that Jeffrey Epstein was a huge investor in a lot of these John Birch Society YouTube channels and Instagrams and all that, and pushing this. But I don't think for any reason other than profit. Because once again, the grift becomes more important than the message. Hence the title of the video. You'll notice I keep, circling back around to that. And so here we are. He went and ran for office again. And the grift had gotten so big that it dominated the mainstream conversation. And our reality flipped. Suddenly, if you lived in the reality that I grew up in, you were the crazy one. You were the brainwashed by liberal. You were the lunatic. The majority now believed in the reality that was sold to them by the grifters, by the John Birch Society narrative. and reality flip backwards. Literally the upside down. So this allowed Trump to win another election in a landslide because of the popularity of it. But now we're seeing what we're seeing now. The trampling of the Constitution, ICE agents wearing masks, giving people no due process. Look at the Attorney General, what we just saw with Pam Bondi. All of this is because all of these people have a phone too. Pam Bondi has a phone too. Pam Bondi has been getting drunk on the same propaganda for decades. And this is where we are. That is how our reality got hijacked. And what we need to do, once we get through figuring out how to survive this current administration, we need to get back to spreading the truth. Because what I've seen lately too, and the Democrats are and the liberals are doing this now, where liberal and Democratic politicians are financing and funding misinformation as well, and saying, why not? They did. We'll play the same game as them. And I get that. I understand. But should you take back the office, or should there be a change in power, regardless, whether it's another Republican that's just not MAGA or whether it's a Democrat, I don't care. I just know that this deranged movement needs to be out of power. Period. And when it is, we need to get back to informing people of reality again. Because we're witnessing how bad it gets when you let a grift get this far out of control. Anyway, my name is Tom Kane. This is another episode of the Executives Playbook, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit the like button, comment. I would be happy to hear whatever you guys have to say. Hit the little bell. Make sure you get notified whenever I release a video, and that's it. Have a good rest of your day, guys.